everyone. Good morning, everyone. I'm Lulu from Team Meiro. Welcome to the AI and Marketing Balancing Experimentation with Driving ROI webinar. Thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure at the beginning of the call to mute yourselves during the presentation to avoid any delays. And for now, I am going to hand you off to very capable hands. Quinn Pham, our Director of Solutions Consulting. Take it away, Quinn.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Lulu. And hi, everyone who's just joining us now. Hopefully, you found the right link because we had a slight hiccup earlier, but looks like people are streaming in, so I think we are good. So, in that case, I'll just kick off right away. And just a reminder that if you have any questions, please feel free to drop it. Any question and plus comments as well, feel free to drop it in the chat, and I'll walk through those questions, if any, throughout the presentation. So the topic that we wanted to talk about today is really around AI in marketing, but specifically knowing that AI obviously is very rapidly transforming the entire marketing landscape with the potential to really personalize the customer experience, optimize our marketing campaigns, extract valuable insight really at scale, right? And that becomes a great enablers for marketers like yourself and me. But with this power, there really comes a challenge of, we keep wanting to try out new tools, implement new things. And how do we balance that with, the cost and the lack of focus of trying out different things with the ability to deliver long-term impact? And so, the theme for our exploration today. But first thing first is a very quick introduction about myself and why I'm really talking about this topic, right? My name is Queen. I'm the solutions consulting person, a director for Meiro, which is a customer data platform. As an organization, we support our clients in building a world-class, repository of your single customer view that then allows you to really orchestrate and optimize their experience in different ways, from personalization to managing the entire purchase journey, post-purchase, both for B2B and B2C clients. So for that, my day job is that I provide consultancy around building a solution, building the desired customer experience, CX strategy, and from there, supporting organizations to really embark on a journey of digital transformation to achieve that. So the strategy goes first, and then the technology, which is where we come in. And with that, obviously, as the nature of the CDP, we work with a lot of different types of data, different types of platforms. All of them have, tools and applications for AI, and that's where we really come across that on a day-to-day basis. How do we maximize? How do we test new AI features in your CRM, your marketing automation, but at the same time still harmonizing that with the overall outcome? So that's my role. And when I'm not doing that, on my free time, I also volunteer for She Loves Data. That's a non-profit organization that has a mission of bringing more actually bringing data and digital transformation to more people, right? Not just female, but bringing diversity in every groups, because as we work with data a lot, we realize that a diversity of opinion, of background really helps every organizations to make better decision that is data backed. And therefore, I run different kinds of beginner class for, digital data, digital marketing to bring more people into these fields. And that's under She Loves Data, both organization that I represent. So that's me. And with that, we really get into what we are really taking away from the webinar today. So today we will look into what are the existing even AI applications that maybe you already are using today. We will look into why there may be a trade-off that exists between the experimentation of those AI applications, specifically in the marketing use cases, a trade-off between that and extracting sustainable long-term values for your organizations. So we would as well be looking into case studies on how we apply advanced analytics into a marketing project and take it into, take it from a small scale experiment into delivering values in a more sustainable way. And with that, we would revisit as well a couple of different success factors, as well as potential pitfalls to watch out for as you embark on such a project. Right. So as we all know, AI applications in marketing is exploding in popularity in the past few years and have been constantly gaining traction, especially we know when, right? Since a phenomenon that we have been seeing consistently across the world, but as well as APAC, which is where I'm coming from. And depending on your source of news, AI is either going to change the world or it's going to replace all of our jobs. So we really know when this narrative started and when this constant obsession or attention on Gen AI started, and that especially in a couple of years back when generative AI chatbots has started to bring that AI capability, but in a very approachable way to end users and allowing non-technical users to be able to use those applications with not very much technical background at all. And that is great in my opinion, because it brings approachability of such an advanced technology to the masses. Now, it is important to recognize, however, that when we talk about AI in marketing, we are really not just talking or limiting ourselves to generative AI. And to set a context for what we are discussing today, we are really thinking about AI as a broad term that covers a wide range of different applications for which Gen AI is just a subset. But the more popular, so far, the more popular or more mature usage of AI really lies in how we use machine learning in various application, predictive analytics, in managing your entire customer journey. So in fact, if you look at your customer journey today, I'll take a very typical customer journey that we are all familiar with, of course, in different types of organizations, B2B or B2C, you would see different versions of that, slightly different. But if we look at across the entire customer journey today, from the awareness stage all the way to advocacy, I bet that you and your team is already using a lot of AI applications that exist already, right? So from awareness stage, where the goal for us is the audience reach for the best possible cost. And here is where we use programmatic media bidding with inbuilt optimization, that's machine learning and AI, to be able to reach the right audience and optimize your cost along the campaign and adjust in real time. Then you have as well the next stage of engagement, which is around consideration purchase, where you're really thinking about how to bring your prospective customers in the hope to move them along the customer journey into the conversion. And here is where retargeting is done extensively. And to improve its effectiveness, we really use things like propensity modeling and various models of product recommendations to be able to place the right thing at the right time in front of people, ensure that we are really helping them to move along the conversion journey, easiest path to conversions. Right? So that is for consideration and purchase. And even in post-purchase, that's where it gets really interesting as well, because this is where we see AI being used in a variety of ways, from empowering chatbots for easier and faster customer service interactions, to using sentiment analysis to understand the real-time customer response and help our agents to, our human agents to be able to respond accordingly and even predict churn or next best offer. And this is to help us to preemptively provide the right experience for the user with the goal of maximizing that customer lifetime value. So that's where, if we look at the entire customer journey today, a lot of AI application either already is being used or already exists in your existing as a feature in your existing tech stack, but maybe some of that is not being utilized yet. So when we think about ROI, right? How do we get back the return, the value from those application and determine the success measurement of that? Typically, we are looking at the ROI based on two main domains. That's the either cost reduction or revenue uplift. So there's a lot of AI applications that aim to improve productivity, the generative AI, and that entire umbrella of the application under that is an example. And these applications are used for content generation, image generation, and it's all about cost saving, which is one kind of ROI generation. And for this, the same marketing operations staff can then, use these tools to augment their operations and create more with less. And that's where we are talking about cost savings. But then on the other hand, when we are thinking about revenue uplifts from your application, then applications that tend to deliver that kind of value tend to be applications of machine learning predictive models. And these focus on delivering the right experience and recommendations that would lead to better customer satisfaction, retention, increased cart values, and improved customer lifetime value. So these are all related to the revenue outcome. So these are the measurements, how we would want to measure the success of the implementation of your AI effort. Now, there are not always easily observable measurement in these two areas in the short term. That is going to be the challenge. Typical AI experiments tend to try to deliver long-term outcome and value creation, but in the short term, this kind of cost reduction or immediate revenue uplift is not always easy to show in a significant scale right away. And there comes the trade-off that we tend to experience when experimenting with any marketing initiatives, right? But I think especially so with AI in marketing, and this is due to the vast potential of its outcome, but also usually it comes with costs, significant costs in data, and not just investing in getting, storing data, but also human costs in turning those data into really clean, structured data that can be used for those AI applications. A study by LinkedIn that I'm showing here has shown that, in fact, digital marketers are under pressure to prove ROI in a shorter term than the sales cycle. So think about it. The majority of the marketers are measuring return during like 1 to 3 months of the campaigns. So this would be sufficient if all you care about is measuring short-term conversions like click-through, purchases. But when it comes to things like customer satisfaction, loyalty, these are typically formed in a longer term, and those are also what we are thinking about when we talk about long-term value delivery, right? So by definition, these short-term measurements going to that even if you are showing an uplift, is not going to be, it may not be aligned with the long-term value creation. So that's something to think about. And I'll give a very specific example. Right, one of the reasons why we see a potential trade-off between experimentation and really delivering that meaningful ROI is that it is really difficult to scale up from your experiment. This usually comes from a lack of good enough data or lack of the ability to execute in a larger scale, right? And that's the reason why the short-term performance uplift from experimentation does not automatically translate into a long-term and sustainable value creation because of this scaling challenge. Now, as we all know, AI really is just built around data. So experimentation typically starts with a small subset of data that's clean and easy to obtain. For example, with my clients, usually you're starting with digital interaction that's obtained from the website. That's really easy and pretty structured, right? And then as you scale up, you want to scale up in volume and in complexity of your data set. And that's where it starts to be challenging. It's not always easy, right? And moreover, repeatedly delivering the same wins from the experimentation for the rest of the organization usually require quite good ability to execute. That means to have a project management, to have resource allocations, to have the right kind of resources or measurement and incentives around it, which is much harder. So take an example here of Klarna, which for those who are not aware who they are, Klarna is one of the major leading companies in the buy now, pay later space, who earlier this year, they actually made waves by being one of the first to be partnering with OpenAI to implement a chatbot assistant, for which they were actually touting that this tool handled 2/3 of the volume of the customer service inquiries within just the first month alone. And they were doing a workforce, replacing a workforce of 700 people. So that is quite an achievement, quite impressive numbers, right? And then as the rubber meets the road, we see that users start complaining about the tool taking a long time to respond, not being able to support beyond the first level and the most straightforward queries, and ultimately had to defer a lot to the follow-up queries to a real human agent. So this is exactly where the scaling up challenge comes in, because a small-scale experiment that shows quick wins may not always be able to scale up and deliver a proportional and positive outcome in a larger scope. And ultimately, this apply not just to chatbot, but any of these applications that we have already discussed so far in any way, because all of that is really a combination of good data and really good execution discipline at large to be able to deliver that kind of value in an organization wide. So when we think about how to achieve measurable ROIs, let's keep in mind this framework on scaling up with the right amount of data and operational discipline. And with that, I would take you through a quick case study on how we think about this and scale this up with a client of ours. Now, this is a case study about how we really built product recommendations in an iterative way, right? And pertaining to our pharmacy retail clients. So if you're in, Singapore or some Southeast Asia country, think of things like Watson, where you would have, it's like on drugstores that have both online and offline presence. So the task here is to personalize the customer experience by sharing product recommendation on a few places, including homepage, category page, as well as post-purchase interactions, through your email, through your even devices, getting notifications maybe. And so when we got to work, the first question that we were asking ourselves is, the who, right? Do we have the right people in the team that represent these different horizons of the interests, right? So obviously we need to have a person to manage the project, the data team. These are Gen AI images, by the way, not real people, in case you are wondering, for the protection of our real clients. Now, we question ourselves, who do we need in the team? We need people to manage the project. Obviously, we need data team to structure the data. We need as well domain expertise, so people who are expert in domain, expert in product, expert in marketing, and people who supposed to execute those campaigns to make sure that the right recommendation is put at the right place. So all of these people are really the core team that's delivering the project, but as well the sponsor, the person who may not be directly involved in the operational aspect of it, has to be somebody who has a vested interest in this project, but as well who has a longer horizon in terms of what kind of metric, what kind of uplift he or she is responsible for driving. And because the sponsor is not so much concerned about what is the result of one or two campaigns, but overall, did we get an uplift in customer lifetime value, in customer loyalty and retention? And those are the things that we measure in years, not in months. Right, so the first thing first is really by design making sure that the squad, as we call it, have the representation of different horizons of those ROIs. And then we go through a process that looks something like this. But of course, while here we are representing it as a straight line, but indeed there's a lot of collaboration, interaction, moving back and forth, re-examining our assumptions and steps before we can have something to deploy to the customers, right? So starting from ideation workshop where we cover brainstorming, various logics and methods that we can use for recommendations, just ideas, right? Defining the short terms and long term deliverables of such an experiment. Then in the process of designing the hypothesis, we narrow that down to specific hypotheses. Often this also means prioritizing what goes into the first iteration and then thereafter, right? So first iteration usually is always where we see what is it that we can do with the least effort for the most potential impact. And that also mean usually we call it quick wins, but that can also be like a bigger project where it really allows you to show significant uplift that help to garner more interest, more support, and more resources internally. So then from there, we need to gather, prepare the data. So we are in the data prep analytical model stage, right? Prepare the data, build the algorithm or recommendation logic, test and fine tune it, and then deploy. So this means showing the recommendations to users and to help measure its outcome in terms of the conversion and uplift, what we defined earlier in the short-term and long-term objective. So of course, this is an iterative process where we measure from, and we learn from what we measure as well. For example, once we deploy the model, we really look at, okay, which areas we can improve or we can be more precise, maybe not in the algorithm itself, but in how we communicate about the about the recommendation, what kind of ways where we recommend that works better in homepage versus in some other places on the website or in post-purchase emails. So those are all the iteration and all the learning that we take back into the next iterations. Okay, so what do those iterations look like? First iteration was really not easy, but simple, right? Nothing is easy from just preparing data and getting it ready for recommendation. It's challenging enough, but logic-wise, the first iterations are simple and logical and straightforward, right? We really started with almost like an if-then sort of logic. So nothing magical, nothing even machine learning about it. It's almost like a rule-based recommendation first, but that allows us to go really fast and learn from our effort. So we defined the recommendations using a few signals, things like if a user is looking at the category page, like category of perfume versus category of flu medicine versus category of vitamins, for example. So those are category pages. And so if a user is looking at those, we recommend the most popular product in that category. And for that, the business also provided us with the list of the complementary products for each of the product SKU. So if you are picking up like a box of painkiller or flu medicine, then a natural complementary product for that would be vitamin C tablet to boost immunity. So those are the kind of things where the subject matter expert can provide us with an intuitive understanding of the market, the users, and the industry without really having to do much of machine learning at all, right? And then we also looked at what the user recently viewed and searched and what other users in the same geographic area is searching, or also users in the same stage of the journey, like new users, first purchase, what they typically pick up and put in the cart. So those are all becoming the rule-based recommendation that we can put into the communication. Simple, but that got us started and that got us to start learning from how those things work. And moving into the second iteration, where we really start to apply different machine learning models. In this case, there were different models that were used and tested, built and tested by the team, for which the output recommendation would be one recommendation per user based on people who have put similar things into cart like them. If they are also purchasing other things, we would be recommending those, and also users similar to you, right? So users similar to you from the perspective of where you are, the predicted gender or interest or concern, we would recommend accordingly. And that is iteration 2, where we have one recommendation per user in a machine learning predictive or algorithmic recommendation. And that then allows us to learn what works and what doesn't work and move into the third iteration, which is a combination of various models. So as what you see here is in the back end for the same customer or a same person, you can have 2 or even multiple recommendations of product SKU. And these are ordered, these are listed based on priority. So that allows us to apply multiple recommendation logic for the same users, but those are prioritized so that we, depending on the business strategy, those priorities change over time. Like for certain months, you want to focus on the white labeled products. That means a private labeled product that the company produce internally, so that those usually have higher profit margin. And some other months you may be focusing on, because we have certain excess inventory on certain product SKUs, so we would want to prioritize recommending those if those products are already in the list of products that can be recommended to a user or a customer, right? So those are what we put in iteration 3, which is a combination. And with that, we still have another iteration. So the last one is about optimizing everything. So in the last iteration, we focused on, improving the relevance of the recommendations by getting the customer's affinity to products or brands in real time and update the algorithm of the recommendation in real time in that way. Also paying attention to the freshness of relevance of data. So if in previous time, we took all of the previous products that people purchased or put into cart or viewed into the algorithm, in the current iteration, we start to think of for how long are these events going to be of relevance, right? Maybe for certain product views, if a person see a product beyond 3 months ago, it's no longer relevant, and that interaction should not be counted into the algorithm of how we calculate the recommendation. So we would take out any data that is more than 3 months for certain types of interactions only. So you can see that by this iteration, we are really building layer by layer, right? Building each item on the last item and add on a new layer of complexity to the recommendation every time. So the results, we observed quite a good uplift of more than double the conversion rate. That means how many users actually end up, after they see the recommendation, putting into cart and converting, purchasing that. And as well, the average order value thereby increased by 72%. So, that's quite a good margin that it actually improved. But the question for you is, those obviously are positive outcomes that proved that the application of the product recommendation model really works and helps to improve to give us some success in delivering outcomes of conversion and uplift. But does this mean we have overall a successful deployment that can be extended to a larger scale beyond this experiment? And this really goes back to what is the long-term outcome here. And I would still argue that, the jury is still out for that, because once again, remember that we are concerned about business outcomes such as customer lifetime value, retention, lower customer churn or loyalty, and the measurement of which would go beyond the few months that the experiment was starting, and it can only be measured in longer horizons. So those are the two horizons we always need to keep in mind. And the reason why I was very careful about thinking of it that way is, I'll tell you a second case study, which also was quite an interesting experience where we worked. This is with another client who is a gaming developer and publisher who does a fantastic job with various types of different games, and they have a big loyalty fan base. Now, when we started working with the client, the team has already implemented a lot of cross-genre recommendation. So what it means is if a user or if a gamer actually plays, shows that they are active, then recommend more games of the same genre to them. Right, so we are assuming that because you like MMORPG or you like really sports game, we would continue to recommend you another game of that same genre. And when we look at about, I think at least 1.5, 2 years of data, the outcome of analysis on that horizon showed us that actually the cross-game promotional activities for the same genre leads to in short term, they lead to a success. It led to people actually trying out new games. But in the long term, this leads to what we call cannibalization of the game time. That means if a user plays this game, now they are recommended the same game, another game of the same genre, and they pick up another game, then the game time, the play time for the first game actually reduce. You don't increase the overall playtime of the gamer. You just get them to move from one game to another. So if the long-term outcome is retention, is improving the engagement, is increasing the overall playtime of the user, then that same game, same genre recommendation actually was not so successful after all. And we actually should focus on recommending different genres. And we realize that most gamers who actually consistently play multiple games, they are more, they tend to be playing different types of genres. So that is a very interesting outcome where we were looking at comparing the short-term and the long-term objective, which is why I'm always thinking about it in that time frame, right? So with that, obviously, the winning factor here, or at least one of those, is really understanding how different metrics have different horizon and how we harmonize those in a way that allows us to achieve both short-term and long-term outcome. I can leave you here with some leading indicators, which tends to be shorter-term metrics that if we see uplift on these, and if we have this as your goal for your experimentation and you achieve that, that's fantastic. But at the same time, we still need to think about how those are going to translate into long-term ROI in the marketing, kind of in the marketing realm. That would be loyalty, that would be win rate, that would be, the total lifetime value of the customers. So those two have to be harmonized. And with that, just a couple of pitfalls for us to remember, right? This is what we see a lot. And because we are a data team, we are more sensitive. We are a data company, so we are more sensitive to this. But, we see a lot of the rush and the excitement around, applying AI and trying new tools, not realizing that your data needs some house cleaning, right? So Andrew Ng, one of the, if you're into AI, ML, then this is one of the, like forefather of the domain and still very influential teacher. And his view is that the key to AI success is not just about having the right algorithms, but more importantly, the right data to be able to train those algorithms. And we fully believe so, right? The right data from a marketing perspective is really about what your customer 360 looks like. Not just digital data, but how you combine that with offline, with POS, point of sale system, loyalty, both behavioral data that is real time collected and also historical interaction from years back and customer service kind of data, so that you can have a view like this where you have a foundation of customer data where you have both factual information of the users, but also that can then help to turn into inferred or predictive information about your user. And that is a good foundation of clean structured data that any AI effort can really build upon. And then the second pitfall that we see a lot is the pursuit of efficiency over effectiveness, right? Efficiency meaning, doing things faster, cheaper, with less resources. If you look at on the left here, how marketers use AI, for example, is a lot about generating more, create more with less time or less human, which is a strong point for efficiency. But then going back to effectiveness, which is, are you doing the right thing that would move the needle and create long-term impact? That is also something that is often overlooked when we pursue efficiency to like such a strong extent, because a salient example of this goes back to that rush of adopting generative AI in everything, social media, AI assisted post. And I don't know about you, but for me, if I see AI generated images, I can always pick out those, and I just feel a sense of I'm not so engaged by that kind of content, right? And the statistics actually show, right? So AI generated posts, not clear if this is just image or just text or a combination of both, but AI generated posts have actually less reach, less engagement, and AI generated comments actually get less response and less engagement as well. So it really shows that just because we can do things quicker, faster, easier, it doesn't mean that we should, because if it's moving the wrong needle, that's not a worthwhile thing to get into. Okay. So with that, I'll just leave you with this, right? Key things to take away from our case studies and from the, what we know about experimentation in AI in marketing is optimizing for both the short-term KPIs and the long-term ROI, taking a very iterative approach and good data as a foundation for great AI. So that is, always start with the foundation. Okay. So with that, I will see if there's any questions so far. No questions. I'll leave you here with my contact. My name is Queen. My company is Meiro, Meiro.io. If you're interested in understanding, how we help our clients of various different industries, retail, travel, retail, banking, financial services, to be able to prepare the data and get a really good single customer view to, get ready for those AI efforts. We basically have, demos or more information on our website. Please feel free to, check it out and let us know. Reach out if you want to see some demos or if you have some further questions with me. So yeah,
Thank
I'll
you.
hand
Thank
over
you,
back.
Quinn. Thank you, Gwen, for that insightful presentation. Before everyone drops off, just a reminder, please look out for an email in your inbox after this for the recording and the summary. Also, I put a link in the chat. Oh, sorry, we have a question before we drop off. She asked, do you have a case for FMCG?
Oh yes, absolutely. So when we talk about FMCG, the typical challenge would be that you don't have a lot of direct customer data. right? You have a lot of sales data that's coming from your vendors, your different distribution market. A few years back, I actually worked with an FMCG in a global one, but the specific one that I was helping with was actually in the in Indonesia, and they had the ambition of creating a direct-to-consumer D2C channel. So we actually analyzed a lot of, and by the way, back then they were launching a new product in the category as well. So we were actually helping the client to analyze those data, building that, what based on the data that they have, analyzed those data to help with understanding the users' behavior as they actually start purchasing and start buying the product, so that it helps them to define their marketing effort in their D2C channel, right? I'm being very careful about describing it because, it's a little bit of a regulated industry, but this is a product that is habit forming. So the client really were, we were helping them with learning the user behavior and how often how they form the habits, which were the product that tends to be the gateway to the habit forming product. Not so much, I mean, we never really think about it as, AI and all of that, but a lot of predictive analytics, a lot of machine learning goes into that to learn and iterate. And in fact, the process that we saw earlier, right, from ideation workshop to, having that squad of people representing different domains and ideation, then first iteration, then learning from that, all of those processes were exactly the same for us when we actually built out those strategies around building the D2C channel. So I hope that
Okay.
helps.
Thank you, Quinn. Does anyone have any last questions? Put it in the chat. You have T minus 5 seconds. Okay. 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 There is. Okay. So this is maybe our last question. Can you share some tips or steps to get started with a brand in FMCG in data and AI?
So it's a bit general. I'm not sure if you would, and feel free to clarify further. I'm not sure if you're really asking about. Can you share some tips to
Uh,
get started with a brand in FMCG in data and AI to increase customer lifetime value and repeat purchase, right? So as I mentioned before, I think the thing with FMCG, the challenge is always that you don't have enough customer data, direct customer data, that is, because a lot of the transactions are going through your, your vendors, your marketplaces like the Shopee and Lazada of the world. So typically, obviously you need to start with data. Bigger FMCG brands would be able to have certain leverage to the marketplaces and maybe able to get some more consumer insight from marketplaces. But as far as I know, most marketplaces, as I mentioned before, they don't really share your consumer data because that is the gold, right? So that is very challenging to be able to really start understanding who your customers are. Funny enough, I think it's really a combination of having strategic partners for, data acquisition. So, for example, we facilitate a lot of the cases where, data owner and with consent, of course, would be able to kind of share the second party data. So if you don't have direct consumer data, you can work with the likes of telcos or other data owners to be able to securely, procure that customer data or customer affinity to be able to start working with those data. So that's one way to acquire that data and insight. it would help obviously if the FMCG would have efforts around acquiring or creating a direct to consumer channel. That would be, as small as those channels tend to be, that would be where you start with when it comes to start collecting directly your own customer data of their purchase behavior, who they are, where they interact in the different channels to be able to create those meaningful interactions. So yeah, it's a tough one. If you either create your own channel to collect your customer data or work with partners who have those. And that would be my first step.
Okay, thank you too for your questions. Thank you, Quinn.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. I placed our link, Meiro's website, in the chat. If you want to learn more about us, you want to schedule a demo, please go to that link. And that's it for us. Thank you so much for joining. Have a great day and see you on the
Thank
next
you, everyone.
one. Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.